Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I'm here with another design team project for rubber stamp tapestry. Now for this one, I'm featuring a peg stamp set called Pottery Garden. And what's really neat with this one, of course, you get these little tiny, they're very tiny peg stamps, the smaller in size, but you also get this strip for the flower pots, which is really cool. I mean, there's so many things you can do with that. You can mask off, cover up other areas and just stamp the one. So it's very universal. So grabbed my Memento Do inks, and I'm going to have the colors on the right hand side of the screen that I used. So I used Toffee Crunch, Desert Sand, and Rich Cocoa, and I'm just layering those colors down onto the rubber stamp. I may get some level of variegated color, but I know I'll have some differences from the ink pads. Now when I do that with my inks, I always start out with my lightest, then go to my medium, then go to my dark. If some of the ink gets onto the ink pad, which it will, it's okay. So my next colors that I'm using are Love Bug, Morocco, Sweet Plum, and Elderberry. So here I'm just going to start stamping the flowers all over. Now these are very tiny images that I'm stamping with. From the flowers, there's two different styles, to the leaves, to the greenery. Now what's great is, and again, remember, with peg stamps, they're universal, meaning you can interchange them with other sets. So these stamps are perfect to accent off of another set, just to do fill-in when it comes to the image that you're stamping, depending upon what that is, whether it's a background, whether it's a focal point. So I'm just looking at each of the flower pots and doing something different. Now remember, with all peg stamps, they have that registry line so that you know how the image is going to be stamped based on how you have that positioned. So with these, of course, the flowers, it's like a circle. It's not going to matter. It doesn't matter where that line is. For the greenery, it does help because you know where the bottom part of the greenery is, and I'm able to place that, turn the peg stamp, and get different views, different angles from that stamp. The other thing that I really like, I mean, there's so much, but with these stamps, we always start with our largest, go down to our smallest. But it doesn't matter if we overlap with these as we create these wreaths and everything. And it never gives you a bad image once you're done. I just think that's really cool. So of course the next two colors this time I'm using are Olive Grove and Pistachio. Kind of different shades of greens than what I usually use. But now I'm just using those to fill in the sections that have maybe a little bit more white spot than what I'm looking for. And I'm just going to let that fern leaf come out just a little bit more to see how that looks. I did use my sand eraser. Obviously, my side of my hand was getting into some ink. You can see I'm thinking here. And I smudged some ink onto the panel, which is okay. I'm not going to start over. I had another idea the way that I was going to do this, so that's okay. We go to plan B. So I grabbed some stitch rectangle dies from my stash, and I'm going to create a frame. I was just going to do with the one, so now I pulled in another size, and I'm going to create a frame on that. So I put that towards the center, a little bit just a little bit towards the bottom, so it is not perfectly centered, and I do know that. So I'm going to use that to go around the image that I just stamped. This way that will cover up the majority of the smudges that I have in the two areas on my stamped panel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim away the white from the background. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not something that people will see, of course. And then to cover up the last bit that's still showing, you'll see. Because there's always a way to make our little tiny, we'll call this one a boo-boo, we can cover them up. So I'm pulling out my Favorite Things stamp set, Everyday Essentials, and I'm going to grab the sentiment, Feel Better Soon. And I'm just going to position that in the upper right-hand corner. And I will use my VersaFine ink, that's my sticky ink, so that I can emboss. And I will use my Brutus Monroe Alabaster White embossing powder. It is a fine detail embossing powder. Once I have that stamped, I'll go ahead and pull in everything else that I need. Once I have that powder applied, and I'm going to try to be careful because knowing my luck I'll get some up underneath the frame, I'm going to use my heat tool to heat set them. I am finding I am liking the Brutus Monroe Fine Detail for my smaller sentiments. It seems to be one of my favorites there. Once that's heat set and it's cooled, I do grab my dry cloth and I just wipe along to remove the excess anti-static powder from my powder tool that is there. I'm going to trim down a piece of fun foam for the back of my panel. And I'm going to use my liquid glue. This is my art glitter glue. And I'm going to use that to adhere that to the back of my design panel. The card base that I'm going to use is a standard size card base, which means it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and it is a top folding card base. Once I have that in place, this is going to cover the front, the complete front of my card base. I'm going to grab, I'm going to dig into my Nouveau drops, and I grabbed my copper penny. I thought it was a good accenting color with the brown frame and the colors that I used within the flowers. Here is where I'm going to cover the other area. So you can see that big one off to the right there. But I'm putting many going around, and then I also have some going throughout the flowers. So this was today's project using the rubber stamp tapestry peg stamp set, Pottery Garden. Can't speak today. I do hope you enjoyed it. All the products that I used, as always, will be listed down in the video description. Make sure you hit that little tiny arrow down on the right-hand side so that you can see more of the description. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below as well, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I want to thank you so much for stopping by and just spending a little bit of time with me today watching my video. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe, but make sure you ring the bell so that you know when the next video comes out. You don't want to miss. You never know what's coming. I hope everyone's having a great day. Take care, but always remember what's most important. Always be creative.